Hey folks, BrickSidious here, back with another Lego drama video. So now the Bricks and Minifigs, Reckless Ben, Brian Mansell scandal drama has, reached the top of the charts. When I first heard about this, what is it, a week, 2 weeks ago, I posted it to some Lego Facebook groups I'm a part of, and, everyone was shocked that it sounded really unbelievable and cringe and horrible, but we never thought it would reach basically the top of the charts for mainstream news, and it's taking over the internet. And so much information has come out now. I think it's enough for everyone to basically cast their verdicts in the court of public opinion. And there could be new surprises, new developments. I mean, I think CoffeeZilla is going to come out with a video. He's very thorough and professional. He only produces content that is really shocking and a kind of criminality at that point. Excuse me, legal, one of the biggest pop legal channels on YouTube has already posted, and I think Reckless Ben is going to post one more video kind of showing how he's been accused of felonies by the American Fork Police Department and Bricks and Minifigs corporate, to basically to try to assassinate his character. And again, he's not a saint. I'll get into that a little later. But what his enemies are doing to him kind of reveals that definitely his enemies are not in the moral high ground. So yeah, at this point, there's going to be a few more surprises, but I think the kind of the die is already cast. Like to borrow from Caesar, and you've probably heard some of this. Maybe some of the things I'm going to say are new to you, but I think the mountain of evidence against Bricks and Minifigs personnel and the American Fork Police Department are overwhelming. They cannot be redeemed at this point, but we'll see. I try to keep an open mind, obviously, and say things that can only be backed by evidence and common sense. So yeah, let's get into it. So first of all, Bricks and Minifigs, they did the typical social media blackout initially. Maybe that's the wise corporate play. They don't want their franchisees or employees speaking on their behalf and potentially getting into more trouble. But now they've gone on a blitz of talking out, like the CEO Ammon has gone on various podcasts. I don't think those did him any favors, and the company has released official statements on, I'm not sure, on their website or social media to kind of explain, quote, their side of the story, unquote. But again, I think it just makes them look worse, and I'll get into it. M&R Productions did a deep dive on some of their statements, so you can check that out. I think his video is from June 5th, and I'll just comment on some of the areas. So one, like overall, their narrative is, well, let me step back. One is, I've never owned a small business or been in a franchise situation. I don't know what they go through. I have, my Brickling store, if you can call that a small business. So I've bought and sold Lego for over 15 years with a wide variety of customers. I've seen some good, some bad, but overall, my community experiences have been very positive. Lego people tend to be good people, and no one's trying to mess with each other and trying to be fair and exchange sets and money so that everyone's happy. Bricks and Minifigs does not seem to embody that at all. They have no business being in this good hobby. Their presence here is like a cancer that is ruining it for the rest of us. I will get into that a little more. But so what I'm saying is, I've worked for corporations for 20 years. I have a business degree, so I'm not just talking out of my fanny here. But again, I don't have firsthand experience, though. I think the things I'm going to say are pretty common sense and reasonable. People would tend to agree. So let me just get into it. So the Bricks and Minifigs narrative, and I'm sure they've spoken to some crisis management firms and other PR firms, the stuff they've released has been reviewed by people. It's not like Elon Musk just tweeting and saying something cringe that his lawyers are not in agreement with. I think this has been vetted and gone out, and that's even worse. Like what they're trying to tell people is they basically are in agreement that, yeah, this is how we want the public to get on our side as Bricks and Minifigs, and it's just boneheaded. So first of all, they're like, yeah, throwing the previous franchisees, Crystal and her husband, under the bus for this is all their fault. They messed up everything, right? That one, they had a debt to franchisees have to pay dues or other fees to corporate. I think it's kind of like a bloodsucker strategy. That's why I would rather have an independent store if I was one of them. I don't know how much value the brand or corporate support is actually offering these small stores. But again, a lot of franchise models are like I don't want to say fully pyramid schemes, but, ways that a corporate doesn't have to do much, and then they get a check every month, just like the mafia, getting an envelope full of cash every month for protection money. I don't think it's a very good business model to participate in. And if you're someone who's, you have some business ethics, like if you are a franchisor, the corporate, the mothership, you have some responsibilities to behave properly and like earn the fees that you're getting. So anyway, they're saying, oh, Crystal had debts that she owed corporate. She didn't run her store well. The consignment agreement violated the terms of the franchisee terms, which again is legal. Didn't think so when looking over the franchise contract agreement documents. But anyway, so yeah, Crystal's so bad. This is not our fault at all. She should have paid Brian Mansell's family for the Lego. So maybe just assuming all of that is true, you vetted Crystal, Ammon, and your people. You gave them a franchise. You allowed her to put your name, your credibility, your reputation on her storefront. So whose bad is it? It's yours. If Crystal was so bad, you should have had some corrective action before this scandal ever took place. And if you were not aware of it, whatnot, that's your failure of command and control and oversight, due diligence. McDonald's probably audits their franchisees. It's not rocket science. And even if you found some of these issues years ago, and again, excuse me, this consignment deal was from like 2024 or something. This isn't new. It's just because the Mansells have been trying to do the legitimate way, trying to work with Bricks and Minifigs to get their merchandise or cash value back, and Bricks and Minifigs had stonewalled them so long, so that eventually Brian did reach out to counsel, I believe, and then he did reach out to Reckless Ben. I mean, that is a desperation move, right? Like if I'm having some business or private dispute matter, am I going to go to some stranger like guerrilla YouTuber Reckless Ben to help me? Like, no, only as last resort, right? So he was lucky that it got virality and the publicity, so that Bricks and Minifigs and others are like forced to listen to him now. But he was trying for over a year, and it was causing him and his family a lot of mental distress and health distress. That he tried to do it the quote unquote right way, and Bricks and Minifigs blew him off. So what do you expect? You pushed Ammon, you pushed Brian and his family into a corner, and now look at the consequences on all of you. So, just completely idiotic from a business risk management point of view. and so again, maybe Crystal was not behaving well and not living up to her responsibilities as a franchisee. So Bricks and Minifigs corporate could have done something about it a while ago. They didn't, and now they're just conveniently using her as the scapegoat, which I don't think the public is going to buy. So also, the statements that Bricks and Minifigs has released, bunch of technicalities, bunch of, but actually this little thing happened, or the social media videos are demonizing us and blah blah blah. When has that type of message ever convinced the public to, wow, they're treating you so unfairly, you're right, yeah, we're with you, Ammon? Like, give me a break. It's a waste of everyone's time. Like, keep it short and sweet, right? Like, everyone says that, not just in apologies, but in life, like, own up. If you really are, if your goal is really to damage control, win back trust, make things right, if you care about doing the right thing, it's probably 3 simple steps. Like, own up to the things you messed up for. Probably your lawyers will want you to say it in a way so that it doesn't expose you to more liability, but you can apologize on a philosophical grounds for, like, this shouldn't have happened, blah blah blah. Mistakes were made. Even politicians know how to do that. And then 2, we may not get the numbers perfectly right the first time, but we will look at the books and Brian's documents about what this inventory is worth, and we will have some sort of we will offer some sort of cash settlement right away. Speed is of the timing is of the essence here, to just give this family a break temporarily, and while the other court proceedings and blah 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 take place. It's like, are they so worried about losing, at most 200,000? They can write it off later as like business losses or unrecovered debt, blah blah blah. But the goodwill that will generate is worth it. Just like donating to hurricane relief or something like that. But they're so short-sighted or greedy or jerks that they can't even see that. And now look, like the GoFundMe for Brian's family has raised over $300K at this point. So, it's just mind-boggling. This is all basically how not to do corporate damage control 101. Maybe this will be a case study, Harvard Business Review and everything later. But it's really shocking. So yeah, again, their statement, it could be 90% correct, right? But it's full of like technicalities, and nobody has time for that, right? No, that's not going to win over hearts and minds. And then there's some damning evidence against them that they do not address, and they, frankly, I don't think they have a response for, because it's so bad. They're just hoping, like the politician style, like distract. Oh, look at the shiny thing over here, redirect, and just stay away from the parts that make us look weak. So one is that this phone call from Kai McAllister, an employee. One, he looks like he's like 16 in his LinkedIn photo. He took down his LinkedIn account, I heard, but I'm not sure what what title he had with Bricks and Minifigs, who they're if they're giving some sort of corporate job to a 20-something right out of school, and that person has authority to make consequential business decisions with franchisees. So again, that shows like how poorly run Bricks and Minifig corporate is, that they would even allow this person to negotiate with Crystal. But you probably heard, and thank goodness Crystal and her husband recorded these phone calls just to show how bad BAM is. But Kai McAllister, he has those viral quotes now saying like, I understand this might sound like a threat to you all, and it kind of is. And, going on, like, we can drag this out. Like, he's basically saying, we're taking over your franchise, we're taking over your inventory, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, it's just blowing my mind how dumb this is. But like, you just incriminated yourself, on a recorded call. Like your corporate counsel, your other, like your PR communications people are not on the call with you. You're just going, Bricks and Minifigs is saying that they had a franchisee, Crystal, going rogue. Their people are going rogue, behaving in ways that are totally detrimental to the company and to the resolution of this case. So that Kai McAllister call, if you haven't heard it, look it up online. It's horrible. And again, Ammon doesn't address that and doesn't correct the mistakes that Kai made. What that's a glaring hole, right? And then also, M&R Productions is saying that he has actually spoken to Ammon, and he has some documents, or some sort of evidence saying that like Ammon had told Josh and Brandon, who apparently were potentially Bricks and Minifigs corporate employees also, in addition to being franchise owners, which is like a huge conflict of interest and kind of complicates the business relationship there. So any well-run business would not permit that type of arrangement. Imagine if there's like a vice president YouTube corporate, in engineering or something, who also has a YouTube channel with 1 million subscribers, and you could imagine, like, even if it's totally above board and everyone's behaving normally, like, it just casts that specter of skepticism of like, oh, is this person making engineering changes to benefit their channel? So yeah, Brandon and Josh cannot be franchise owners and corporate at the same time. But so I'm not sure if that is actually the case, but let's just say it's possible, and I wouldn't put it past these people. But anyway, so Ammon is like, yeah, the Salem store is having all sorts of problems here. Go, you two boys, like, you can have it now. You can reap whatever value, extract whatever value you want from it. It's yours. Like, what is he? A medieval warlord, like, giving out like spoils to his lieutenants and stuff. Like, it's just shocking, really. And then now going to Josh and Brandon, like, you see them on the security footage. One of them's coming in with like an Under Armour tracksuit and a backwards hat, and like on his phone, distracted, like trying to talk to Crystal, like, here's how it's going, like. You can bring it up with corporate. This is business stuff. It's not your concern. Like, you're the potential new franchise owner going in to assume control of this place of operation, and you come in dressed like a bum and like talking like that. I mean, like, sure, you don't have to be in a 3-piece suit, but like, have some professionalism coming in. But you can tell, like, these Josh and Brandon have probably done this before. Like they're just following the playbook that's probably worked in the past. I mean, imagine all the people they fleeced and mistreated in the past that didn't have a viral YouTube campaign to help them. Now they're finally, the chickens are coming home to roost. They're finally caught this time. But, yeah, you can tell they're in all the footage. They're acting so entitled and hubris and everything that, like, they expect to just, like, why are you getting in my way? This has worked before. Like, we're allowed to do this. Stop it. Just like spoiled children who are finally told to their face how poorly behaving they are. So, yeah, and again, I'm not one to judge a book by its cover. I'm not I'm not like a 9 out of 10 when you look at me in the mirror and stuff. But just, sometimes a picture can speak 1,000 words, and sometimes first impressions matter. But you look at those guys like Josh, Brandon, Ammon, Kai from Bricks and Minifigs, and they don't look trustworthy, right? They don't look competent, and they look. Do you want to do business with these people if you saw them for the first time? There's people like that, and there's other people like Tim Cook, Warren Buffett, etc. that have an air of credibility and decorum and class, how they behave themselves, right? How they appear, and that matters in business. It's like, it's what's in my heart that counts. Yeah, maybe so, but like, you are working with strangers and other people who may judge you in business, and you want them to feel comfortable. You want them to respect you and to feel respected and whatnot. And the conduct that the Bricks and Minifigs people have been showing on camera, in their communications, etc., is just not that. So, yeah, I mean, this company deserves to fail if it wasn't for this scandal. But it's just like, they're not doing the things that successful businesses are doing, that upstanding businesses are doing. So, you make your bed, you lay in it eventually. So also, as this issue has gone more viral, customers and Bricks and Minifigs franchise employees have spoken up more or leaked stuff, and they've said that they've been treated poorly by BAM corporate, and maybe even they've had their stores taken over, unverified, but they've potentially had their stores taken over and inventory seized. So, I totally believe that this is not the first time. This is just the first time they were caught on it, and yeah. So just going back of like, oh, Crystal might have sold some of Brian's collection already, and she owes him money. That's possible. Yeah, so let's look into that. And you'll look at the videos from Crystal and her husband's channel. They seem, again, appearances wise, they seem like good natured, maybe a little naive. Yeah, not like maybe they're not running their store the best according to business best practices and the BAM playbook. But I have the feeling that they're not scheming evil people, right? They're not. They weren't trying to scam Brian and his family. They may have made some honest mistakes. But I think they were trying to work things out with BAM corporate. They weren't the ones yelling and making threats, right? And acting like low lifes and used car salesmen. So I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though I probably believe that they messed up some ways and they probably still owe Brian's family some consignment money. But anyway, so yeah. Crystal probably owes Brian's family some, but BAM corporate, nobody forced their hand. They decided to take over the store and probably saw it as, again, a greedy, short-term money-making opportunity for them to be, oh, look at this like sealed Lego inventory, Lego Star Wars inventory here, very lucrative. I heard a Cloud City set was included. And that too is like, I don't know how many. Salem, Oregon is not like Manhattan here. I don't know how many local customers can afford a Cloud City, especially the markup prices that BAM would probably give them. But hey, it is what it is. I mean, that too, like, there's a BAM about an hour from where I live. I've never got, I'm lazy. I don't want to take the drive to go out there. But I have tried to reach out to them. I heard like, oh yeah, email us with sets that you might want to sell, and we might help you. So yeah, I had ones that weren't selling well on like eBay and Bricklink. So I sent them an email with the sets I have and photos, and never heard back. So again, I don't want to lump all the BAM franchises together. I'm sure there's better and worse ones, but I called and they told me to email with their inventory. I did it as they said, and they ghosted me. So that's what I have no interest in going to them again. I went to their website or followed their social media to see the inventory and the prices they're offering, and they're not good, right? Like even the shipping costs you have to pay on Bricklink, where it's kind of peer-to-peer transactions. Like I can get better deals there. I don't see any unique value that Bricks and Minifigs stores are providing the Lego community, except for maybe live events like birthday parties and whatnot. Which now, like, I don't want these people around my children. Like going to the store of like, a big a big pile of like loose Lego, but buy by the pound, or minifigs. You can get that from your local garage sales, probably at better prices, and then the sets like behind the glass, so to speak, of like like a complete 2015 ATTE or something, with mint minifigures and stuff. Like you're gonna pay for it, right? Because Bricks and Minifigs, they got to cover their labor and real estate rent and insurance and blah 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 costs that like an online Bricklink store doesn't have, right? So like, why would you buy those sets from them rather than online? I mean, sure, you can look at it, see, but it's not like, oh, this thing is like the only available at the Salem Bricks and Minifigs store. On Bricklink, there you literally can get every single Lego ever produced, right? I mean, some of the prices are not going to be bad, but it's not going to be good, but it's not going to be the only item in the world. So Bricks and Minifigs, it's not like they provide unique supply that you can't get anywhere else, and their prices are bad. So frankly, I don't know how this business has even operated this many years and expanded. Like, is there enough money out there, or like I hope customers are not being suckers to this company, because they just are not adding value, in my opinion. Even before this scandal, they're not adding value to the Lego community, and they seem to be extracting value, actually. Like that's their role in the ecosystem. Kind of like a virus leeching off of another organism. But anyway, yeah, I know this is going way too long already, so let me try to wrap up here. But yeah, okay, the American Fork Police Department also, have to call them out. Just horrible. Like again, I'm not an expert on law enforcement and everything, but their conduct, their damage control PR and whatnot, and their obvious bias towards protecting their friends in Bricks and Minifigs, who they might be fellow Mormon church members or neighbors or whatnot, and how they treated Ben and his crew. Like Legal, and others have gone through this, so I don't need to, but they are totally unprofessional. They probably violated some Ben and others people's like civil rights, that so there could be lawsuits there. Just nothing Nothing redeemable of what we've seen on body cam, and there's no context, right? Of, oh well, actually, it's not what you think. I'm tired of the gaslighting, right? Like they try to say, oh, don't believe your eyes, believe my words. Give me a break, right? It's if the roles were reversed, would they believe me? I mean, like heck no, right? So yeah, so now going to other people in the ecosystem, like Ben Schneider, Reckless Ben, like yeah, he's a 20-something untrained. Like obviously, he doesn't have a lot of experience with legal matters because of the some of the things he did during this saga to hurt himself and his team. But he's a 20-something guerrilla YouTuber, right? Uh, you can't expect him to do everything perfectly, right? I personally believe that he did not make threats. He probably did, do some kind of quasi harassment and stalking, but to like get people's attention, right? That's his job. That's his role. Like, what do you expect him to be in a 3-piece suit with a briefcase and, oh, pardon me, sir, may I have some of your time to like, to resolve this matter? No, I mean, that's why Brian's family reached out to him. They knew what he was and what kind of service he would provide. And, as far as I know, he's not getting paid. Like Bricks and Minifigs is alleging that Brian is going to give Ben a cut of any recovered Lego or damages that he receives. I mean, give me a break. They're not scamsters like that. You can look at Ben like, I think in his previous content, like his heart's in the right place. He's trying to expose injustice and help the little guy against a cult or against some sort of organization that is stronger. But yeah, he's made some missteps, and obviously, like everyone says that, like, don't say anything to the police without a lawyer present to defend you, right? All the stuff he spoke to the police about, that giving them fodder or potential incriminating testimony that may be used against him, or justification to keep him in jail or have a warrant out for him. It's so he did some dumb things for himself, and he did some dumb things that didn't help Brian's cause. But in the end, he did his job, right? He got Bricks and Minifigs corporate to listen. He got the public on Brian's side. So what more can you ask, right? Yeah, did he break some eggs and mess up along the way? Yes, and I guess he will be held accountable for that. Like Bricks and Minifigs is probably wants to sue Ben, and those two can sort it out. But really, even if Bricks and Minifigs wins the case or it's settled or whatever, is that going to make the public turn on Ben? Does Ben have deep pockets that are going to recover all the damage that Bricks and Minifigs have done to themselves in this fiasco? I don't even know if Bricks and Minifigs as a corporate entity can survive into 2027 after this. So yeah, you can sue, maybe make yourself feel better, get what they feel is like justice, or like for Ben hurting their business. But at the end of the day, who's to blame for the downfall of Bricks and Minifigs? The Bricks and Minifigs people are, clearly. And the other side characters had some contribution, but much less. So yeah, so again, this is scapegoating. Ben is a small problem in this, but he's not the problem. So anyway, yeah, just to I think lastly, and yes, some of Bricks and Minifigs side quests of like trying to bully Patreon into blocking Ben's page. Give me a break, right? Who do you think you are? Like, what authority do you have to tell another business how to operate? Like, and that's the viral response from the Patreon CEO to like, hey, Bricks and Minifigs and Ammon, stuff it, right? Like that was beautiful. That's how good leadership is, right? It's not like Patreon is supporting like a drug dealer or something. Ben has every right to get fees from his content that people want to consume, that the content is not breaking any laws. Just the hubris again of Ammon, what a total jerk with his villain mustache. He probably thinks he looks cool, the hubris for him to think that this would work is just unbelievable. Yeah, if I was one of his investors, definitely like no confidence in his leadership. So lastly, there's Brian, his family, and all of this is like, I spoke in the last video about just do not rely on Lego to be an investment vehicle for you and your family. Like, it's just too risky, right? And even if you have a mint Cloud City, it may take months or years to sell it, right, at a price you're happy with. So collecting things is one thing, and then finding a buyer is another. And again, okay, so maybe they're not experienced online sellers and they want to go into a consignment deal with Bricks and Minifigs, where Crystal seemed nice, like maybe this will work out. But if you have a collection worth upwards of 100K, it's kind of risky to put all your eggs in one basket with Crystal and expect her to sell it all and give you maybe she takes a 30% cut and you get 70. Oh man, I just wouldn't have done that, right? And I know that they're probably in a tough spot with like they don't have a lot of wealth to their name immediately, and the father is not in great health. They probably have their own kids and job things to worry about. But if you're like a collection of that size, maybe you want to handle the selling yourself, or consult with some friends or something who won't take such a big cut of just like tell you how to sell this effectively. And ultimately, I would try to sell myself, right? Even like Bricklink, it's a lot more labor intensive to set up your store and handle transactions. But if you want, something like eBay, where eBay assumes a lot of the legal liability and seller buyer protections, they take a bigger cut, right? Like 10-15% maybe, but that's still better than Bricks and Minifigs consignment. And now you have access to the whole world of customers. Somebody in Dubai with deep pockets who wants to buy your Cloud City versus Salem. How many Lego customers can you possibly have in Salem? 10,000. So I would have gone a different route. But again, the consignment could have worked out okay for them if they were dealing with competent, ethical people. So, in through this whole saga, everybody messed up, right? Some were honest mistakes, some were a bad intent, but clearly the biggest villains through all of this are Josh, Ammon, Brandon, and the AFPD. So let's keep that in mind. And Reckless Ben and the others are at like a lower tier of messed up, but so yeah, that's my take through all this. Thanks for watching till the end, and it's a lot going on there. But I hope this can be a teachable moment and a lesson of like how not to run a business, how not to handle public relations and communication, how not to handle managing and selling a very precious, expensive Lego collection, and how not to deal with the police, so yeah, that's there you have it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you're having a good day, and I will talk to you next time. May the force be with you.